And welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review, and this is Y3ezy from Rogues Empire. And Y3ezy has watched so many roster reviews. He said, I could probably do my own roster review. I already know what you're going to say. And a lot of what I say, you'll probably know, but there's going to be hopefully some things. He says he's kind of getting in between from the mid game now to the starting to get into the end game and really wants to know what he should be focused on. His focus is really most important. Obviously, the focus needs to be relative to the arena, ships, Heroic AAT, everything that's in there, but he wanted to kind of know. So the first thing, we're going to get right into it, is the arena. And when looking at your arena, I see a really good team. You've got some decent mods. You're gearing them up. You're developing them. I wanted to create a Zeta profile for what you have, for what you need to Zeta, and this is just my opinion, but from where you're at, what leaderboard you're in, for what you have, the development, everything, the first Zeta I would actually recommend, and I know it's crazy, I'm going to suggest it over CLS, but is actually Devoted Protector. And the reason is, especially how early your leaderboard is, and you know, 8 months in, you're a Dolphin, by the way, you spent a little bit of money and you've been playing for about 8 months. On an 8-month-old shard, having Devoted Protector is probably going to be rare, and it's going to be very frustrating for a lot of people, even if they were hyper focused and got their Thrawn, and even if they're running around with their Thrawn. This is going to be the anti-Thrawn, and it's going to be the anti-CLS, because if he swipes, it's going to put that up again. So definitely Devoted Protector is going to make him more durable. And again, if he dies, it's kind of like, I call it like a ghetto illuminated destiny. So it's you know, it's okay if he dies, but it's definitely one of the most important Zetas on this particular team. Number 2 and number 3 are actually going to be on CLS, and I wouldn't do his leadership ability first. I would actually do it last. And the reason is the other two, his 2 uniques are really good. Learn Control and It Binds All Things. You could do Learn first and then Binds. I would do it the other way. I'd actually do Binds and then Learn Control. Both of those are really good, and then eventually if you wanted to run him as a lead, you could, but I would, again, not suggest that yet. And then lastly would be R2-D2, the combat analysis, allowing all the light side to cleanse themselves every time they crit, which is more than likely going to be happening on your team because of who you're running. Now, when looking at your team, these really are your 5 top tunes that you have unlocked, developed, and geared up. And so this would be the team composition I would recommend. So you're doing a great job. However, and you have probably ran it this way, I would run Rex in the lead. And this is why, you know, CLS is going to bring a little bit of countering and a little extra damage, and that's cool, that's good, but you're probably already facing a bunch of people that have, you know, slightly better mods than you, and you're struggling to compete in that top 100 because of mods. Rex is kind of the equalizer. When you put him into the lead position, it's going to significantly speed up your team, especially because everybody's probably running a CLS variant in your top 100. So because of that, they're going to be feeding you a bunch of turn meter, and if they're running R2-D2 with CLS, it's almost assuredly, when they do the burn, they're going to get 3 to 5 crits because of the CLS lead, and R2-D2's burn is an AoE, and so he could feed your team, you know, 20+% turn meter per character, you know, every time he does the burn, plus other turn meter gains. So it's just going to speed your team up faster. Yes, it reduces the damage a little, but it's not enough damage reduction for the speed. It's a good trade-off. You know, you lose a little bit of countering and a little bit of power for a lot more speed, and so I would try and swap it out and see how it works for you. I think it would work better. I really do. I still have Rex leads in the top 10 on my leaderboard, and those teams are actually the ones I hate going against because my team's synergy is constantly interrupted because of their team going over and over and over because I fed them a bunch of turn meter. So definitely who I would have running as the lead. But other than that, and those 4 Zetas to shoot for and focus on, this team is really good. Continue to finish developing. I know you've got Han Solo 6 stars, gear 10. Obviously, keep taking him all the way up to gear 12, and same thing with CLS and R2-D2. And Old Ben, and then the 7th star you'll get automatically, obviously, since you're doing the Heroic AAT. As far as ships, you're actually doing really well, and I think you're doing really well because you're running a comp I've suggested like 100 times in previous videos, and so you're listening, and I like that. And so you've got the Executrix and you've got the TIE Advanced. The only thing I would do, and I know this is, people are going to say, it doesn't matter. Why does Warrior say that? It doesn't matter, but it does, because you're going to be going, when you're on offense, against a computer, not a human being. So the computer will have a harder time doing targeting and whatnot. I would put Biggs, I would take all these ships out and put Biggs in first, the TIE Reaper in second, and the TIE Advanced in third, and then put your two little TIEs, the Imperial TIE Fighter and the First Order TIE Fighter, in the back. And I know that that is superficial at best. However, when you're on offense going against the AI, I, for myself, have noticed that the AI's targeting seems to always target Biggs first, and the majority of the time, and that is actually what I want it to do. And so that's why I always put Biggs in that front slot. Try it out and see what you think. If you don't see any difference, then you can just put it in however you see fit, but I figured I would give you that thought. Now, the only thing with ships is I noticed that you don't obviously have Thrawn, and so I came into Rebels and looked, and I noticed you only have one Rebel ship, Biggs, and he is obviously the biggest, best, and most overpowered ship in the game for a tank, but you don't have any of the other Rebel ships. And so if you want to know in-game what you want Thrawn and Thrawn's Chimera, and the only way to get Thrawn's Chimera is to have the Home 1 7, well, you need it 5-star, and other ships 5-star, but to eventually get it to 7-star, you will need these ships 7-star. You will need 5 Rebel ships at 7-star and the Home 1 at 7-star. So you're going to have to continue to develop the Home 1, and you're going to have to continue to develop other Rebel ships. That's 4 other Rebel ships. Now, Biston's U-Wing, even though it has 2 pilots, that's annoying, it's still one of the best ships in the game, one of the top 5 best ships in the game, and it works phenomenally well in a target lock team. So I would recommend Biston's U-Wing. Also Wedge, more than likely you have Wedge pretty high because you have Biggs, and so I would recommend Wedge's ship as a Rebel ship. And then you could also do the Phoenix ships, even though those ships are, they're good, not amazing. They're good ships. They're solid ships. And I'm going to be recommending that you work on your Phoenix team. Now, you probably don't want to work on Phoenix, but that's going to be the direction that we're going. And so because of that, that's another 2 ships that you'll be able to work towards. So those are the ships I personally, if I were in your shoes and I was working towards end goal, those would be the ships that I would focus on. So other than those 5 Rebel ships, you also said you wanted to know for Heroic AAT and other just basic factions to focus on. And we got to line you up first with what you're missing and what you need to get what you're missing. So Thrawn is an absolute must-have, and BB-8 is a must-have, and Rey is a must-have. Those are 3 really, really, really amazing characters in the game, and they have lots of usability all over. They're definitely in-game characters. So first, I'm going to suggest Resistance. Now, every single Resistance, Poe, Finn, Rey Scavenger, Resistance Trooper, Pilot, all of these characters need to be developed out 100%. They need to be fleshed out. And the reason is you're going to use every single Resistance character in the game. Every single one of them have a critical piece in the puzzle of in-game for Heroic AAT. There are 2 teams you can build that will take you all the way from the beginning of Phase 2, all the way through Phase 2, all the way through Phase 3, and all the way through Phase 4, and it requires all the Resistance to make that happen with those 2 teams. So because of that, this is an in-game team. This is the team you say, oh, I have to do it whether I like it or not, because this is what's going to get me the most efficient and highest scores in the Heroic AAT. So you've got to work on your Resistance. R2-D2's there, so you need to start working on all of the other Resistance characters. Now, 2 of the Resistance characters you will not be able to get through farming traditionally, and that's BB-8 and the Vets. We'll talk about them here in just a second, but get the rest of your Resistance up for the Heroic AAT. Now, aside from the Heroic AAT, just overall development of your roster, I noticed one critical piece missing. That was the Chimera and Thrawn. And the only way to run the Chimera is to have Thrawn. So you're going to have Thrawn. And this is the literal first team that I suggest to everybody that they develop so they can get Thrawn. Thrawn is the #1 most overpowered dark side character in the game. You don't have him. And this is why, because you don't have your Phoenix leveled up. Now, a lot of people don't like the Phoenix. They think that the team's not very good, and I can appreciate that. But it doesn't matter. Either you're playing the game for success and you're paying to be a patron to get information to learn so you can become the very, very best, or you're just wasting your time and spending money fruitlessly. The whole point of this right is to make you the best you can possibly be. And sadly, that does mean that you're going to have to embrace certain teams you may not like if you want to be the best. That is a part of strategy, is figuring out what's best, not what you like the best. And this, in fact, does need to be developed out so you can get your Thrawn, so you'll have him for his capital ship. Now, Phoenix Squad, you could safely take them to 7-star, and I would take them to Gear 9, and this is why. They're pilots, and you're going to be using their ships to get the Chimera. So you definitely, even though people say, oh, I got Thrawn with a Gear 6 or a Gear 7, don't worry about the minimum. Take them up to Gear 9 and just get these guys at least to that 7-star Gear 9 minimum threshold, because they're pilots, and you definitely want them to bring in to the pilots a certain amount of strength, so that way you can make sure that you get all of that. Plus, you may very well use these ships in the territory battles and potentially territory wars. So this is going to help you in the long run in many areas of the game. But get the Phoenix. This is, other than Resistance, this should be your absolute go-to. Your favorites list should have all the Resistance characters in it and all the Phoenix in it. It should be about 2 rows with those characters, and you should be focused on basically nothing else other than maybe a tiny bit going into your arena and pilots when you have pieces for those particular characters. But the Resistance and Phoenix, when you do Phoenix, you will be able to get Thrawn, and then after you have your Resistance to at least 7-star Gear 8, and you have your Phoenix to 7-star Gear 8 or 9, then you can move on to another faction. You can always come back to these factions, but the next faction I would then move to would then be First Order. Now, this is going to, for your own mental planning and preparation, probably be not for another 3 months. You're going to spend the next 3 months really getting your Resistance to 7-star Gear 7 or 8 and your Phoenix Squad to Gear 7 or 8 and 7-star, and so then you can move to your First Order. And First Order, the reason why you really need to focus on these guys, aside from territory battles, wars, and all of that, using them in dark side and stuff, you need First Order so you can get BB-8. BB-8 is the MVP of any Heroic AAT team. He's an absolute must-have. He really is. And so because of that, because he's one of the best characters in the game, you're going to have to develop this team even if you don't want to. Again, they take teams that you don't want to develop, and they make you develop them to a point so you can get certain characters that are the most important in the team, in the game. Now, First Order, again, I suggest you get them to 7 stars, and I suggest that you get them to Gear 8 or 9 like every other team. You don't have to take these types of teams all the way to Gear 11 if you're not really going to use them much, especially if you're a Dolphin or mostly free to play, because you don't want to put too many resources into a team you're not using. But I assure you, after Resistance and Phoenix are done, you're going to want to move to First Order. Now, when you're doing First Order to get BB-8, you should have Resistance and Phoenix pulled out of your favorites, and you'll have First Order put into your favorites. You'll want to also put into your favorites during this time the Veteran Smugglers, the Veteran Smuggler Chewie and Han. Looks like you have them kind of sort of geared up 6 and 7 and 3-star and 4-star respectively. But when you're doing First Order, you can also do these vets, because when you're trying to level up to get BB-8, you'll also be leveling up to try to get the vets. So that way, once you unlock BB-8 and the Ray event comes back, you'll have the characters you need to 7-star to get BB-8 and then Rey immediately thereafter, because they traditionally tend to drop the legendary event you need before the next legendary event that you want to get. So BB-8 will probably drop right before the Rey event, and it's probably going to happen every 4 months or so, maybe even sooner. The more characters are added to the game, the sooner they bring back these types of legendary events. So pretty cool. But that should help you focus. Really, your arena looks good. I would just put Rex in the lead for the extra turn meter gain. I think it will give you an edge. For ships, you've got a perfect team. You're hyper focused on the most important ships, but I would develop passively those 5 Rebel ships that I mentioned, the 2 Phoenix ships, Biston's ship, and Wedge's ship, plus you already have Biggs, so just those 4 that I mentioned. And then, of course, for Heroic AAT, focus on all the resistance that are farmable, and worry about getting your Phoenix squad up so you can unlock Thrawn for his capital ship. And then also, after you're done with the Resistance in Phoenix, you'll move to First Order and the Veteran Smugglers. So Y3ezy, I really hope this helps you focus in the end game, what teams you need to go, focusing on how high you should go. With the Resistance, I would take them because you're going to use them in Lightside and, you know, territory battles and territory wars, and you're going to use them in the Heroic. You know, you can't take them too high. So if you take them to Gear 9, that would be safe before you move on. The Phoenix, you probably want to take at least to Gear 8, and as far as the First Order, you probably want to take them to Gear 8. All of this is going to have to be 7-starred, so you can get these characters to 7 stars that unlock, so you can use them in the Heroic AAT. Once you get there, which should take you between 3 to 6 months to do all of what I've suggested, then you will have the base foundation of some of the best characters in the game, which will set you up for success for future events. As always, if anyone has any comments or questions, you can leave them down below, and keep your gaming on. Warrior out.